The First Law of Magic, Chapter 1, An Unfortunate Birth and a Fortunate Death. The first law of magic is that magic cannot be created or destroyed. Every pony knows this. In fact, just about every being knows this. Magic isn't brought into existence by those who can use it, but is rather channeled, altered by will, and then released once more into the world. This holds true for all magic, from Pegasus flight and weather control to Earth Pony strength, durability, and connection to the Earth, to Zebra potion magic. Even the primitive rituals some Griffin shamans perform all utilize the same currents of magic that flow throughout our world. Though many have tried to find the origin of magic, it's an esoteric field of study that has more theories than evidence. As such, it is generally regarded as unimportant at best, or the work of hacks and mad ponies at its worst. However, there were ancient ponies of all three tribes who understood the nature of magic and its relation to the soul. That knowledge was deemed dangerous when applied, and they were subsequently slaughtered by the two sisters. Their great works of magic erased from history so that none may follow in their twisted steps. Or at least, that was the intention. For after Luna's madness, the magic of the soul was used once more, and on a much grander scale than the world had ever seen up until that point. After Nightmare Moon's defeat and the subsequent banishment of her followers to the depths of the Everfree, Celestia breathed easy, allowing herself to believe once more that she had stamped out all traces of the twisted art of manipulating the soul. After witnessing the horrors that her sister had unleashed with the knowledge that they had thought to eliminate from the world, Celestia knew better than to even hold on to the memory of such magic's existence and purged it from her mind, deeming the complete removal of all knowledge of soul magic worth the price of utilizing neuromancy on her own mind. She left behind only enough information to know the signs, the horrors it unleashed, and how to deal with it, which gave her more than enough drive to stomp it out despite her self-imposed ignorance. With the threat of her sister's madness destroyed forever, her own knowledge gone, and all traces stampered out, Celestia's arrogance grew. For in that moment, she had forgotten the first law of magic, that singular moment of folly that would eventually just seal her fate. The mother and father leaned against each other as they stared throughout the window into the crib-filled room beyond. The labor had been hard, but without complication, and though Twilight Velvet desperately wished to fall into the sweet embrace of sleep, she had to ensure that her daughter was safe and healthy. Nightlight was slightly less tired, but his nerves were no better than his wife's. He couldn't stop himself from worrying himself into a tizzy where he had gotten word that his wife's labor had drawn out far longer than it should have. But both of their sufferings had been deemed worth it once they had laid eyes on their healthy baby girl, who now lay only a few feet away. The filly herself lay on her back, legs spread, and eyes closed, contently snoring away, seeming oblivious to the other children's cries. The calm the child had didn't seem to extend itself beyond her, as every foal around her screamed, cried, and thrashed, or did a combination of all three. Strangely, the ones furthest away from the child seemed fine, lying in a fitful sleep or utter calm, unaffected by the aura of fear and unease that permeated the child. This was all lost on the parents who merely saw children just being children, stress robbing them of the worry that would have bothered any other pony. Besides, they thought, they were two adult ponies standing on either side of their little girl. They were probably the source of the disturbance, as they probably woke up the closest ones, and it was exactly midnight after all. But that wasn't true. That was just the last time Nightlight had glanced at the clock, which had coincidentally been the moment their darling filly had been born. The two medical ponies stared down at the child between them, the gears working within their mind, as they tried to figure out the best course of action. She was obviously different than the other children, though you wouldn't know that without the benefit of the higher education and enhanced scanning spells that they both had used. The only real difference seemed to be her horn, which was slightly too pronounced for her age, and was probably a part of the reason why her delivery was complicated. Other than that, though, she seemed fine. Her coat of lavender fur was even and pristine, everything seemed to be in order, and when she had been awake, she reacted as anticipated to external stimuli. Hearing seemed to be okay, eyesight worked, and they even caught her sniffing the air at one point, meaning the foal had her faculties at best as they could guess. Only her horn and nervous system seemed wrong. One of the ponies, a pediatrician by the name of Tenderhoof, gulped nervously, and tried her best not to look over at the parents, who were no doubt staring at her right this moment. The neurologist across from her harbored similar dark thoughts, but was better in hiding them. Maxon hushed the other doctor with a silent hoof placed to his lips. Tender nodded once and turned a little further away from the parents, all the while imagining their gaze drilling into her. This was wrong. Very, very wrong. She wasn't the expert, but she could feel it, the aura of fear and unease that surrounded this filly. It seemed barely existent to the powerfully built Earth Pony nurse who had delivered her, but to the unicorn pediatrician, it was an ever-present pulse at the back of her mind. A pulse that told her to run, to hide, and never to speak of this again. The stallion across from her could feel it as well, but his academic drive pushed those thoughts from his mind, focusing on the why. Why did he feel this way? Where was this aura coming from, and how could this even be stopped? His muzzle scrunched in thought as his horn glowed brighter. Subtle shifts in his magically enhanced senses allowed him to see the pulsing undercurrent of the filly's nervous system. There, just under the traditional nervous system, was the magical one, referred to as the Lambda system. It gathered mana from the surrounding world and drew it into the body, where it could be transformed into magic with the application of will, as well as pushing the mana all over the body in order to store for later use. Though no pony knew why it followed the normal nervous system almost to a T. They did know that they were both intertwined and different at the same time. Sometimes one could be hurt without affecting the other, and at other times damage to one was instantly reflected onto the other, seeming without rhyme or reason. Which was why it was so disconcerting to find that the filly's real physical nervous system was nearly non-existent, seemingly replaced by the ethereal strings that mimicked and overlapped the traditional system. Though it was just a guess on the part of the neurologist, it almost seemed as though the filly's immense magical strength had somehow either compensated for a damaged nervous system by building a magical one over it, or she was simply so powerful that her lambda system had overtaken her nervous system for whatever reason. Axon then clenched his teeth and looked up. I'm going to apply pressure to the child in a couple of spots to test something. Be ready to calm her down if something goes wrong. Tender shook her head instantly.
Please don't ask me to touch that thing.
The stallion growled and looked the other doctor in the eye. That thing is a filly who might be suffering from some rare disease. Now you'll do your job, or I'll find some pony else who will. Panic slipped over the mare's face for a second, quickly replaced by reluctant determination fueled by guilt.
Yes, Doctor.
Axon nodded once and brought a hoof down next to the child's side. Beginning ever so gently, he pressed against the filly's side in a few places. Slight pressure yielded nothing, not even a brief flicker of the eyelids. And he frowned at that. Clearly, there was some potential nerve damage there. He pressed a little harder and was relieved when he saw one of the filly's legs squirm and her eyelids squeeze shut a little tighter. He breathed a soft sigh of relief and lit his horn, extending his magical sense and checking on the currents flowing throughout the filly's body. What he saw nearly took his breath away. Something's clearly wrong with her nervous system, that's obvious, but the way that her lambda system reacts makes me think that it's acting as the nervous system that the filly doesn't seem to have. So whatever this filly has isn't life-threatening. As of yet. He mumbled to himself. With that out of the way, he lowered his hoof back to the ground and turned to give the two very nervous parents a warm, genuine smile. The two ponies behind the glass breathed a sigh of relief and relaxed visibly, pulling their faces away from the glass and regaining some much-needed composure. Though Axon eyed her carefully, Tenderhoof seemed to trust his judgment and gently pulled up the slumbering filly's blanket until it sat snugly under the newborn's chin.
Are we done here, Doctor?
Tender asked, with more enthusiasm than what was appropriate. Axon frowned and did one last cursory scan before nodding. Yes, get that same Earth Pony nurse to keep her eye on this one. Maybe she will have the fortitude that you don't. Though she was tempted to argue, Tender merely nodded once and left, more than happy to have an excuse to leave. Axon looked down at the filly one last time before leaving. Whatever was wrong with this child was beyond his understanding, and with his colleagues being so ill at ease around the child, it fell on him to break the news to the parents. He sighed as he exited the nursery and left the crying foals behind, along with a headache that had been rising in the back of his mind because of them. This was not going to be easy. It wasn't like he expected many of these conversations when he chose to spend his life studying neurology. Once clean and assured the rather burly elderly Earth Pony nurse was assigned to the child, he made his way over to where he knew the parents of said child were no doubt still standing, nervously awaiting the news that he bore. As he turned the corner, his eyes met theirs, and he couldn't help but feel sympathetic. Having an expert getting called out for your child so quick after the celebration of his birth was not really something any parent wanted to experience. He forced a polite smile to his face and made his way over. Hello, my name is Axton Verge, and you are Twilight Velvet and Nightlight, correct? The stallion before him nodded quickly.
I wish I could say it was a pleasure to meet you, Doctor.
The neurologist merely nodded grimly. Well, I should start with the good news first then. That drew their attention, and both parents leaned closer. It's neither life-threatening nor is she in any pain.
Not life-threatening? What do you mean by that?
The hysterical tone of the mayor's voice drew the stares of the fee pony still around this late at night. Axon's smile fell away, and he sighed. We should finish this conversation in my office. It would be better if we were somewhere private. Both parents exchanged a fearful look, and although the mother seemed more hesitant to leave than she cared to admit, she nodded reluctantly. A short trot later, she saw the three in a slightly cramped office without so much as a window. Little decorations spattered the room haphazardly. Piles of various papers covered the desk, and an open book covered what little empty space was left. Now, many creatures without a nervous system would just die, but putting those facts aside and keeping into the lack of physical touch, that has just gotta suck some major duck dick. Now let's get off of the PP talk and let's get on to our grand donators. Top donators: TacoCat598, Peter Coulthard, J Tinman, Darkside, Ponyman, and Gauntlet. Zar630, Rayden, Blackmoonheart, Drake Lovedragon, Dospo, Delta Omega, RuneScythe9852, Hunter Norman, Dash of Evergreen, Riney Dragonwolf, Secret Moon, Tal Rasha, The Toilet Snake, Sword Brethren Mordred, Ronin Wandering, Random Person Man Guy, Easy, Jack Cadge, Skyochia, Leslie Prickett, Jordan Peterson, Crimson Kitten A9, Lightskin, Monster Kitty, Starlight Glimmer, Lightning Blitz, Squiddy Boy, David E. Sanchez, Soul Dragon, Gaggy, Trey, Shadow Drake, Joker C, Alex F, Rainbow Dash, Theo K. Anderson, TV Killer, John Becker, Leon Reynolds, Raven Speedster, Zach Rakau, Mystery CU, Edgar Garcia, One Kingdom 1, Nissa Rusan, Vozuri, Dyslexic Character Sheets, Just a Random Boy, Hodrick Plincart, A Crazy Person, Ponyman365, Neapolitan, 6 of 9, Shyfire, and Stamp. Thank you all so much for watching this video, and live life to the fullest with a whole bunch of feeling.